Justine Waters answered her phone upon hearing it vibrate. It was a message from her spouse, Tom, who had been absent for several days due to work commitments. The text said, "Business concluded." He then informed her, "I'm returning now. A dinner reservation is made for 7 p.m. at the restaurant. See you there. Happy anniversary." There were no affectionate words or emojis as usual. This wasn't surprising given Tom's recent emotional distance. "See you," Justine responded. "Happy anniversary. I love you." She dispatched the message and placed her phone on the nightstand, expecting a response. Alas, none came. Justine observed the clock and recognized that she had just enough time to prepare herself for their encounter. She sighed, rose from bed, and made her way to the bathroom to shower before reuniting with him. Who was that? Jake Carter inquired of the woman he had recently spent hours with. "My husband," she responded. "He informed me he's due back soon. He's booked a table for us tonight, marking our 5th anniversary." "Your 5th anniversary, you say?" Jake questioned. "I assumed you stated he left for the East." "Yes, he was there," Justine replied. "It appears he finished his tasks ahead of schedule. I must contact my mother to check if she wouldn't mind babysitting little Jacob for a while longer." "Very well, then return to bed," Jake suggested with a mischievous grin. "Perhaps we can offer Tom a small token." Justine scoffed at this suggestion. "I would be delighted, Jake, but I truly need to organize myself, and I'm pressed for time," she explained. "Regrettably, I have some clean clothes here that I can change into. I shouldn't greet my husband in these clothes I'm wearing now. They're wrinkled and stained." "Do you think he's aware of us?" Justine shook her head. "No, I don't believe so. Recently, he's been engrossed in something that demands most of his time and focus. He hardly communicates with me, seldom interacts with the baby, and it seems as though he's in a different realm." Jake queried, "For how long do you intend to keep him unaware?" Justine hesitated. "It's tough to predict. He's a reliable provider. I believe he could be an excellent father if he chose to be." "Do you suppose he knows that Jacob isn't biologically his?" she pondered. "If he does, he hasn't disclosed it yet. It's hard for me to envision him being oblivious about something like this without discussing it with me." Jake assured her, "I'll be here if you need anything." Justine smiled at him, gazing affectionately at his diminutive figure perched on his leg. "Keep him warm for me, will you?" she said coyly. Jake reciprocated the smile, addressing her, "You'll understand it soon, dear." She headed towards the wardrobe and fetched a fresh dress. She was surprised by how much of her clothing was housed in this closet instead of the one she shared with her husband. Justine surveyed the blue dress she'd selected, questioning if Tom had previously noticed it. It reached just 7 centimeters above her knee and boasted a provocative neckline that dipped deep. She was fairly confident Tom had seen it before. If not, she would nonchalantly inform him it was a recent purchase. Following a call to her mother, Justine headed for the bathroom to enjoy a revitalizing hot shower, aiming to rid herself of any remaining remnants of Jake prior to meeting Tom. She had pledged, when embarking on her affair with Jake 16 months ago, never to disregard Tom by offering anything less than her complete focus or permitting him to touch her while she still carried traces of Jake. At first, Jake comprehended this, but ever since little Jacob was born approximately 3 months back, he had begun insisting that Tom sanitize her. Justine informed him it was unhygienic and vulgar, and refused to dishonor her husband in such a manner. It was troublesome enough that she was with Jake, and more agonizing still to bear his child, something she'd never consider. Post-shower, Justine smoothed her lengthy dark hair, donned clothes, and applied makeup, feeling content about her appearance and scent. Adequate for Tom's inspection, she kissed Jake goodnight. "See you tomorrow at the office?" he inquired, appraising her. "Absolutely, dear, but tonight, responsibilities beckon." She picked up her purse and nonchalantly departed. Tom Waters took a puff from his cigarette, ensconced in his Escalade facing the restaurant. He had just been informed by one of his private detectives that Justine had exited Jay Carter's luxury condo, her companion for almost 18 months. He scrutinized the photo of her in a blue gown sent by the detective. The dress she wore at Carter's apartment wasn't familiar to Tom, and he hadn't seen it before. This didn't shock him, as Justine was correct about one aspect. Tom had returned early from his trip to the East. He was warned of an urgent issue with his security system that demanded immediate attention. If ignored, they would handle it instead. By they, he understood a clandestine federal agency whose existence was shrouded in secrecy. Tom remembered feeling uneasy sitting in Alpha One's office, a man known only by this code name. Few were privy to his real identity, and Tom wasn't among them. "You have a significant issue, Waters," the man had said, moving his head like the biblical figure Moses. "When there's a problem, we all face one. Resolve it discreetly, or else." Tom nodded in agreement. Tom comprehended that his response to Alpha One needed to be conciliatory, for he recognized Alpha One's reputation for eliminating those who displeased it. He had heard chilling tales of Alpha One's destruction of an entire beachfront mansion and everyone within. The notion sent a shiver down Tom's spine. To the outside world, Tom was merely a renowned roving salesman traversing the country, peddling security systems to companies seeking enhancements. However, Tom was far more than that. Certainly, he dealt in security equipment and managed its installation, but his role went beyond being a mere salesman. His responsibilities encompassed much more. The devices he marketed and installed were equipped with unique circuits, granting Alpha One's monitors access to nearly all the activities these companies undertook, their clientele, how they utilized their profits, and everything else. But Tom was aware that Alpha One was referring to his wife of 5 years, Justine, or at least she had been until today. Over the past 18 months, Justine had been involved in a passionate relationship with Jay Carter, a senior partner at her law firm where she worked as a paralegal. Tom was unaware of most specifics until recently due to his frequent work-related travels. However, he had sensed for some time that there were issues between them. By the time he discovered the details of the affair, Justine had already announced her pregnancy. The lawyer Tom consulted informed him that no judge in the state would entertain a divorce while she was pregnant. If the child turned out to be his, he would still be obligated to pay child support regardless of their prenuptial agreement. The only asset they didn't have to worry about was the house, which was already in his possession prior to the marriage. Tom gritted his teeth and stayed quiet throughout her pregnancy, barely keeping himself together when she named the boy Jacob, after his biological father. Moments after the baby's birth, Tom arranged for a DNA test. Unshocked by the results showing the boy wasn't his, he looked at his watch and anticipated Justine's arrival. A man in khaki clothing near the restaurant door with a woman carrying a briefcase was someone he recognized as waiting for him. Crossing the street and parking, Tom grabbed his typical briefcase and approached the entrance, acknowledging the two people stationed there with a subtle nod. Tom conversed briefly with the woman at the door before settling into a secluded booth. The man in khaki and the woman took seats elsewhere within earshot. Tom appreciated the water offered by the waitress and perused the menu. Spotting Justine's arrival, he put the menu aside. Rising from his seat, he greeted her as she sat opposite him. "Good evening, Justine," he said in an even tone. "You look attractive tonight." "Thank you, Tom," she responded with a smile. "I haven't seen that dress before." "Is it a new purchase for you?" "Yes, I recently bought it. What do you think of it?" He responded affirmatively with a slight grin, complimenting the piece's ability to accentuate your eyes. Following their meal order, they detected music emanating from another area within the establishment. This venue was not just a restaurant. It featured a dance floor and cocktail bar as well. "It appears our song is playing," Justine observed. Tom recognized this as her hint to dance. Impulsively, he decided that, given it was their anniversary, even if it might be the last one, he should honor her request. "Would you care to dance?" he proposed, rising from his seat. "I'm not particular," Justine responded, extending her hand. Tom guided her to the dance floor where they moved together, but Justine sensed that Tom kept a small space between them, as if he found it challenging to make physical contact. The music eventually ceased, and Tom escorted her back to their booth. By then, their meal had arrived, and they started eating. Is there something troubling you, Tom? Justine inquired, noticing his distant demeanor. Tom remarked, "It's our anniversary." To which he received, "Yes, it is," in reply. However, the scent of your dress suggests it has been stored in Jay Carter's wardrobe for quite a while, and despite your best efforts, the odor lingering on you seems to be his. What? Justine queried, taken aback by Tom's tone. Jay Carter, you're serious? She questioned, attempting to evade the subject. Indeed, he is one of the senior partners at your law firm, Tom casually mentioned. Of course, I am familiar with him, Justine retorted sarcastically. I trust so, Tom responded. Given that you've shared his bed, and he's the biological father of Jacob, Tom added. This is preposterous. How dare you speak to me in such a manner, she exclaimed. You will listen, Tom asserted, opening his briefcase. You'll listen attentively to whatever details I reveal, given your past actions over the previous 16 months. But why do you seem puzzled? I don't comprehend what you're saying. Well, I think you do. Let me clarify, he responded, placing a document before her. What's this? This is the DNA test result for your child. As per this report, Jacob isn't mine. The subsequent page verifies that the donor is none other than your lover, Jake Carter, the man you named Jacob after. How could Jake's DNA be in you? She asked in bewilderment. That was simple. You brought him home with you at least 3 nights a week, but there's more. He retrieved a thick folder and placed it on the table. What is this? A copy of every email, text message, and electronic communication between you and Jake over the last 16 months. Regrettably, privacy on the internet is largely an illusion. Very well, I confess, she conceded. After a single encounter with Jake, it was merely physical and held no emotional significance, completely insignificant. Could you point me to page 75 and scroll down roughly halfway? There, you'll find the passage I underlined. Let me hear you read the words you wrote to him. She hesitated, her face pale, as she read her own words to Jake. I need you to listen, she said softly. Say aloud the words you penned for him. Tears welled up in her eyes as Justine looked back at the page and started to recite the highlighted words Tom had pointed out. What you do to me, Jake, leaves me feeling exquisitely contented. The past 16 months have been my most satisfying sexual experiences. I eagerly anticipate our future attempts to conceive another child. She read aloud, I prefer your stature over Tom's, and I eagerly anticipate the next time you can fully occupy me. In all our years of marriage, I don't recall you ever speaking to me in such a manner, Tom responded. Is this all you have to say? She asked apprehensively. No. I have photographs, recordings, and videos, hours upon hours of video. It seems you harbor intense animosity towards me, Justine whispered. Yes, I do, he confirmed. This left her taken aback, as if struck. Once, I would have risked my life for you. When did you discover this? Even before you told me about the pregnancy, I had suspicions. I conducted some investigation and collected proof, enough to uphold our prenuptial agreement. However, by the time I consulted with the lawyer, you informed me about the pregnancy. The lawyer made it crystal clear that no judge would even consider a divorce until after the birth, child support included. But now that Jacob has been born, I have more than enough evidence to move forward. Tom announced he had filed for divorce due to adultery. A man then approached their table, addressing Justine Waters. Is this Miss Justine Waters? Upon confirmation, the man presented an envelope and stated, You've been served. Tears flowing, Justine asked, Served? Tom clarified. The divorce papers. Take a look at them. They are as we agreed in our prenuptial contract. Sign them now, and I will give you a cashier's check for $2039.45, the same amount you had when we married. Don't ask for anything more. I already know about your hidden savings account. You can keep it. All your belongings have been delivered to your mother's house. Yes, she is aware and disapproves of your actions, but has agreed to let you stay there until you find your own place. Tom retorted, For the children's sake, not yours. Justine objected. But I don't want a divorce, she pleaded. I love you. Tom responded, Please don't underestimate my intelligence. Listen. He showed her a recording of her conversation with Jake from earlier in the day, causing Justine's eyes to widen. How did you obtain this? She questioned. I won't explain, or I'd have to eliminate you on the spot, Tom said, smiling without warmth. We were merely a financial resource and a caregiver for you, while Jake's father enjoyed all the benefits. Just so you know, your account has been deactivated. No more free passes for you, at least not from me. What about Jake? She asked. Oh, you're worried about him. Wonderful, Tom added. Luckily, we live in a state that permits alienation of affection lawsuits. He's being served as we speak. The outcome might be uncertain, but the principle is what truly matters, right? Regarding your situation, I had a conversation with Hamilton Parker today, your managing partner. I presented him with evidence and voiced my discontent, as one of his senior partners was allegedly involved with a junior staff member who also happens to be my wife, at least for now. Hamilton was distressed and expressed concern about Carter's actions potentially causing trouble for the firm, not to mention the possible financial implications. He acknowledged that it would be best if Carter were disassociated from the firm and promised to address this with his board of directors tonight. Additionally, he agreed that penalizing you wouldn't be fair, particularly given your status as a mother with a newborn. Tom mentioned Carter was essentially your superior, and he wished to avoid a potential sexual harassment lawsuit implication. Considering your past work record, he believed it wise to keep you employed temporarily. However, Tom warned that Carter's troubles were far from over. How well do you actually know your partner? Tom questioned. Are you truly aware of who he is? Justine inquired. I'm referring to his clients, Tom explained. The individuals he conducts business with. Essentially, the parties he genuinely represents and what he engages in when not involving you intimately. Are you familiar with that? Justine replied she wasn't aware of such matters as Carter never discussed them. Well, let me clarify. Your J. Carter possesses quite intriguing clientele, the kind that catches the interest of specific federal organizations. Agencies capable of vanishing a person without a trace. Do you comprehend my words? Tom said, causing Justine to feel apprehensive. Are you fearful of being associated with J. Carter? Given his imminent fall, it would be wise for you to distance yourself. If, however, you persist in your proximity, you too will tumble. She questioned, Who are you, Thomas? He responded, pointing at the papers before her. In the news, Justine, and in this unfolding drama, I may have divulged more than necessary to you. By the way, your credit card is void and the house key no longer functions. I altered the locks today while you were with Jake. I've also managed the bank account so you can no longer access it. Given that you've been secretly saving half of your earnings, this shouldn't pose an issue for you. You were fully aware, weren't you? She asked again. Tom nonchalantly shrugged. Defeated, Justine examined the divorce papers and found them to be as Tom had stated. She signed the documents and returned the pen to Tom. He smiled, accepted the pen, and perused the papers once more. The process server verified the signatures, and a woman accompanying him notarized the signed documents. Tom received the papers from the man. I'll deliver these to your lawyer, Mr. Waters, the man stated. Thank you, Tom replied. Once they departed, Tom faced Justine again. I think it's time for you to return my rings, he said to her. Do I have to? I cherish these rings, she protested. Clearly not enough to avoid Jay Carter's embrace. With moisture in her eyes, Justine handed over the rings and set them on the table. He stored them away before speaking to her again. I assume our dealings here are complete. Your verdict, is that all you have to say? He inquired. What else is there to discuss? Tom questioned. Why did you do this on our anniversary? She sobbed, tears running down her cheeks. How embarrassing is this for me? How embarrassing was it to discover I've been deceived all this time? And how shameful was it to find out that Jacob isn't my son? After learning you slept with Carter on our anniversary, Tom coldly declared, Don't even try to manipulate me. He ended things decisively. Goodbye, Justine. I never want to lay eyes on you again. With those harsh words, he resumed his meal, avoiding eye contact with Justine, who was drying her tears. The waitress inquired about their well-being. "The meal is as excellent as ever," Tom commented nonchalantly. "I'll take care of the bill, and I believe the lady will be taking her meal to go." The waitress obliged, packing Justine's leftovers into a styrofoam container moments later. Tom paid for the meal, and Justine collected her belongings as the waitress completed her tasks. When she finished, Justine looked at Tom. "Is that it?" Tom confirmed dismissively, waving her away. She couldn't fathom how casually he had just dismissed her. Tom apologized, but Justine could only stare at him as he spoke, distraught. "We can both acknowledge that," he said before departing. "Enjoy your day," he added, with a slight smile. "Give my regards to your mother." She left the table sobbing. Tom smiled back, masking his inner turmoil. 5 years of marriage washed away, the worst was now over. The subsequent days were challenging for him, but he managed to persevere. He had once deeply loved Justine, and this act pained him, yet he chose this path instead of exploding in anger as he desired. Then, a knock came at his door one day. In his bedroom upstairs, he spotted Carter's sports car in the driveway through the window. With a premonition, he had fortified his home security system as per Alpha One's advice. He descended and unlocked the door to find Jay Carter, seething with fury. Tom retreated as Carter burst inside. "You bastard! You ruined my career, and Justine won't even speak to me now. I'm going to kill you, you despicable wretch." Jake roared, his face flushed with rage. He charged at Tom until he noticed 15 tiny red spots appearing on his attire. An electronic voice boomed from the wall speakers. "Alert! Intrusion! Do not move!" The unwelcome guest screamed. He gestured as if trying to flick off the spots. Suddenly, a loud noise erupted, resembling a shot from an air gun. When Jake glanced down, he saw 15 darts embedded in his body where the red spots had been. Trying to reach, he failed, collapsing instead to the floor with eyes rolled back. "It seems like you won't be causing harm today, Carter," Tom said quietly, taking his phone. He clicked an icon, and a male voice sounded. "Dispatch 1211, cleanup in Section 15, Tom stated. "Section 15 cleanup." "Received," the voice responded. Tom clicked another icon, setting off tranquilizer darts that struck Jake. The devices then retracted back into the ceiling. With the panels closing, no trace remained of the incident. Satisfied by the efficient functioning of the newly installed security system, Tom smiled. A few minutes later, an unmarked white van arrived at the driveway, and men in Tyvek suits entered, removing Jake's unconscious body. One of them took Jake's keys and left in a sports car. Within minutes, the van and car vanished. Closing the door, Tom resumed his daily activities. A few days passed. Following Tom purchasing a caramel mocha at the neighborhood cafe, a big man in a dark suit and sunglasses halted him on the street. "Alpha One desires to converse with you, Mr. Waters," the man gruffly stated. "At once." "Very well," Tom responded, slightly startled by the man's attitude. He accompanied the man to a lengthy black limousine parked at the sidewalk and entered upon the man opening the rear door. "Waters, it's good you're still unbound," said Alpha One after the door closed. Yes, sir, I've kept myself engaged," Tom replied. Alpha One smiled and patted Tom's shoulder affectionately. "Go ahead, Tom. When it's just us two, you can address me as Regis," stated the one-eyed man. "I wish to provide you with an update on Mr. Carter. He's spilling everything like a bird." "Thank you, Alpha, or rather, Regis, so he's telling us all we require to know?" Tom inquired. "Indeed, he's giving it his all," Regis replied. "But at the moment, he's actually singing like a canary. Appears the mix of your security system's tranquilizer darts and the serum employed for data extraction has reduced Carter to a state of mush. Currently, he's hanging in a metal enclosure, emitting bird-like noises." "Ah," Tom replied. Regis extracted an envelope from his coat pocket and passed it to Tom. "We were able to reach a settlement with him before his condition deteriorated beyond the point of signing his name," Regis informed. "He was so grateful for his life that he agreed to more than you initially sought." "Well, that's positive news," Tom acknowledged. By the way, I wanted to tell you I'm quite impressed with your new setup, Regis added. Given Carter is no longer an issue, I'm glad you opted against my suggestion of .50 caliber machine guns. I concur, Tom echoed. I happen to have my carpet cleaned recently. Regis chuckled at that. Any updates on Justine? Tom inquired. Yes, she's back at work, but Mr. Parker is keeping a tight rein on her. Had you ever disclosed to her who you truly represent? Regis inquired. No, Regis, I never did, Tom answered. Regis gave a nod. He was aware of this from his surveillance equipment, yet desired confirmation from Tom directly. Good, Regis stated. Once your divorce is finalized, I'd like you to visit headquarters. I want to present you with your new associate. Associate, Tom questioned. I've never required one before. Indeed, there's a first for everything, isn't there, Tom? Regis responded. Yes, sir. I suppose so, Tom agreed. Good, Regis stated. Then I anticipate our meeting. I do as well, Regis, Tom replied. The door signaled the conclusion of the meeting, and Tom exited the limousine. As the large vehicle merged into traffic, Tom pondered Regis' plans for him. Thanks for listening until the end. Next story. Evening in the household, children asleep down the hall. In their shared bed, Matt and Lynn sat comfortably propped, he reading a Civil War book, she editing marketing reports. Emitting a soft sigh, Matt shut his book, shifted towards Lynn. He admired how her tongue's tip would subtly appear when engrossed. Her hand idly arranged a lock of dark hair at her ear as she worked. Lynn, she hummed in response, not looking away. After a pause, Matt sought her attention again. Do you have feelings for him? Lynn stiffened and pale-eyed her husband. Unwilling to play the who game or deceive, she met his honest gaze. Matt deserved truth. No, she confessed, then it's just physical attraction. Matt, she tried to maintain eye contact, then lowered her gaze to her work. Yes, it seems like this is primarily about sex. There was flirting followed by the expectation of it. He suggested she sleep in the guest room, implying his suspicions. She denied any indiscretion and left the room, closing the door behind her. Upon returning home Friday evening, Matt found an aromatic house, with Lynn cautiously emerging from the kitchen to welcome him. Despite the smile, she kept her distance. Lynn wore her finer apron, used when entertaining guests. Tonight we're having dinner at the Frankels, so I thought to prepare something special for us, she shared, maintaining a smile. Matt glanced towards the dining room where the table was dressed with a cloth, their finest china, and two exquisite wine glasses. Candles flickered, accompanied by cloth napkins and silver napkin holders. Matt acknowledged with a nod. It smells delicious. I'll be down after washing up. Upon his return, Lynn was carrying the food from the kitchen. She dished out roast chicken, potatoes, and green beans for each of them. A stunning bowl of salad adorned with orange slices sat adjacent. They settled at the table, and though it barely escaped Lynn's eyes, her husband's tension remained palpable. It looks lovely, Matt commented. Immediately, he rose from his seat and ascended a chair, standing tall above the table. Perplexed and then distraught, Lynn observed as her husband, seemingly inexplicably, removed his pants, took out a bottle of liquid, and drenched their dining table with its contents, the chicken, potatoes, salad, and even the glasses filled with wine. Shouting in disbelief, she asked, Matt, why? Her eyes widened with shock and terror. Matt buttoned up his pants and vacated the chair, casting a stern gaze at Lynn. I wanted you to experience what it feels like when someone damages something you cherish, something you've devoted considerable time, affection, and dedication to, he explained. Silent tears streamed down Lynn's face. Matt fetched his coat and exited the house. Today, during daytime, I asked for a transfer, she declared. Really? She inquired. Yes, she continued. I'm being moved to the internal marketing department next week. I wanted it to happen promptly. He'll be inside the Union Street building, further away from his current location. Why did you ask for a transfer? I assumed you enjoyed working in the international department. Thus, he won't be close to Douglas anymore. He also won't share the same office with you. Upon hearing this, he stopped raking leaves and faced her, standing beside him in her vibrant autumn sweater. Why should this concern me? She seemed both irritated and saddened. Because I won't see him again, that's all. I wanted to inform you of that. He resumed raking the leaves. Lynn, I already know it's over between us. I trust your words completely. Can you think of a single reason why I wouldn't? She tapped her foot lightly and said, Matt, are you really trying to be sarcastic at a time like this? And do you truly believe that moving out of the office will solve everything? It's not as if there aren't motels, breaks, breakfast meetings, or client gatherings outside the office. Matt snapped, his voice filled with anger as he piled up leaves, avoiding her gaze. Aren't there countless others who would jump at the chance to share your bed and forget their identities? He paused, then continued in a low, harsh tone. Lynn, what more can be done? You're exhausting every possible solution, every known method. Her voice trembled as she sobbed. To express my remorse, to mend the damage I caused, Matt. She wept openly. You believe there's a way to mend this, a magical solution, the right words, actions, or gestures, and everything will be restored. He turned back to her, his eyes hard. Realize this, Lynn. You inhabit a fantasy world. Afterward, Lynn heard footsteps in the corridor, followed by Beth's drowsy, slurred voice from the doorway. Mommy, why are you sleeping in the spare room? Despite her age of 6, she still spoke with a lisp when she was tired. Late at night, I worked, darling, ensuring not to disturb Dad. Did a nightmare trouble you? Beth gave a solemn nod, and Lynn hastily got up to comfort her. Let's share the bed, Betty, with Big Bear. She nestled her daughter and the teddy bear under the covers next to her and settled down. Within minutes, Beth was asleep again. Lynn gently picked her up along with the teddy bear, intending to return her to her room. On her way back, she hesitated, then turned towards the master bedroom. The door was slightly open, and darkness filled the room. Lynn paused, searching for the right words, but stopped by an unusual sound. It was sobbing, Matt quietly weeping, possibly into his pillow. Lynn stood still, listening, before softly retreating down the hall to the guest room. Each Wednesday morning, it grew easier to remain in my office and focus on my tasks. His mind lingered in distressing realms less frequently and for shorter durations. His assistant, Bernice, intuited his distress but understood his reticence to discuss it, instead offering compassionate smiles. At 10:50, he rose from his chair, approached the door, and shut it. He grabbed a dictionary from the bookshelf and plonked it on the desk. The term he sought was found, and he articulated its definition, cuckold, signifying a betrayed husband. He resumed his seat. I am a cuckold. He repeated this several times. The word tasted odd in his mouth. I am a cuckold. I've been cuckolded. She cuckolded me. He remained quiet for some time, gazing into nothingness. Eventually, he let out a sigh and set the dictionary aside, resuming his work. Saturday. Goodness gracious, Lynn, what on earth did you think would happen? Lynn stayed silent, and Arlene continued. They sat in Arlene's kitchen, 2 cups of coffee before them. You're sleeping with another man without Matt's knowledge, and now you're perplexed that he's enraged and wounded. Arlene observed Lynn recoil at the revelation but persisted. And you're astonished that he feels this way? I'm not taken aback, Arlene. Have I informed him about how long it occurred? Lynn shook her head. I don't know when or how he discovered it. He doesn't wish to. We haven't discussed it yet. Do you believe that if you told him it was only a handful of times, it would matter? It wouldn't change anything for me. Lynn winced. Let me make this clear. If the roles were reversed, and he had been with another woman multiple times, I would still be devastated. So don't think I'm surprised. I'm not surprised at all. I just don't know what to do. I can't connect with him, and I'm unsure of my next move. She cast her gaze down, stirring her coffee with a spoon, while Arlene remained silent, watching her. 3 weeks later, on a Wednesday afternoon, no, Matt said decisively, then softer, I don't want her to inform me about it. The therapist furrowed her brow slightly. Isabel Harshman, sporting a short, dark haircut reminiscent of a beetle, wore a brown corduroy sweater. Matt glanced at her without giving a second look to his wife seated beside him. "Wouldn't it be beneficial for both of us to know why Lynn acted as she did?" he inquired, addressing her. "I believe it might aid Lynn in unburdening herself, but I fail to see how it could help me." Skeptical, Lynn cast a glance at him. "Did you truly think that sharing the details of what transpired and why would make you comprehend I'd never do such a thing again?" Matt asked her, turning his gaze towards her. "Do you sincerely believe that there's anything you could say that would mend my trust in you, Lynn? Do you truly feel reassured that I won't need to worry about you for the rest of my life, questioning when you might cheat with another man?" Quietly, Lynn looked down at her lap. She replied, "No, Matt, I don't believe there's anything I can say to make that happen." 2 months passed before Thursday evening rolled around. "Oh, Matt, this place is stunning," she beamed, gripping his hand over the table. In an outdoor setting with a view of the Caribbean Sea, they were seated at a table. The air was balmy, and the sunset's red glow lingered in the sky. A pitcher of sangria and a platter of grilled shrimp adorned their table. "Isn't it lovely?" His smile was less effusive. There seemed to be stress etched on his face, near his eyes. He reciprocated by gripping her hand briefly before picking up his fork for another shrimp. "Thank you for agreeing to travel south with me," she expressed gratitude. Lynn knew it was challenging for him to maintain eye contact for long periods. An hour later, they were making love in their room. Later, they lay side by side, Matt on his back with his hands behind his head, and Lynn nestled against him with her head on his chest. She whispered softly, "That was wonderful," and Matt tenderly ran his fingers along her spine. She appeared drowsy but stirred to glance at him, saying, "I appreciate it, but lately, every intimate moment feels like a repeat of the same scenario." She chuckled. "Are you trying to possess me entirely?" she teased. Matt scrutinized her, his forehead wrinkling slightly. He exhaled deeply. "When we're missionary style," he hesitated, then turned away. I, I can't stop seeing another man in your place, picturing you gazing at him just as intimately." He left the statement unfinished, and there was a sudden chill between them. Some time later, Matt stood up, donned shorts and a shirt, slipped into his sandals, and exited the room. 5 weeks elapsed before Sunday evening. Most of the time they remained quiet, standing on opposite sides of the room in front of the bookcases. Lynn sifted through the CD collection, while Matt tidied up the bookshelf. He remarked, "Ought I keep the Dickens collections since I've read them all? You decide. Feel free to take them if you wish. I won't be reading them again." She picked more CDs and set aside those that were Matt's in a stack nearby. Then she faced him. The sight of his muscular back under the tank top, each movement fluid and exact, stirred something within her eyes welling up. In a quiet tone, she admitted, "This isn't what I desired. I never sought this." For a brief moment, Matt paused but didn't turn around. He suppressed a reply and resumed arranging books. The silence spoke volumes. Both understood what he would have said. 7 weeks had passed, and on a Saturday evening, Beth and Jason yelled excitedly from Matt's car as they dashed inside for a hug, leaving their travel bags scattered on the floor. They simultaneously spoke to her about their zoo visit and shared their affinity for giraffes, mentioning their elongated necks and the cotton candy their father bought them. Subsequently, they dashed past her into the living room, switching on the television. Matt smirked as he walked towards the house, bearing the forgotten bags. Lynn reciprocated the smile. It seems they enjoyed the zoo. I'm still unsure if they were elated or frightened. We had a close encounter with the giraffes, which loomed above us, hovering over the enclosure's wall. They also adored the giant tortoises. It was an enjoyable day. They conversed for a little while longer. Lynn inquired, "Would you fancy a cup of coffee? The pot's on the stove." "No, no, I appreciate it," he replied, feeling somewhat uncomfortable. "I must be going now." "All right," Lynn responded, maintaining a grin. "See you on Wednesday evening," he stated, turning towards his vehicle again. She observed him until tourists moved past the end of the street and turned left, vanishing from sight. 4 months later, on a Monday evening, Beth was seated at the kitchen table, coloring as Lynn prepared dinner. Jason lay on the floor, repeatedly putting together his preferred wooden jigsaw puzzle for the 500th time, featuring a vibrant clown with 17 pieces. "Mommy, is it normal to kiss friends?" Beth inquired, fixing her gaze on her mother. Jason glanced over at her. "I'm not sure, sweetheart. What do you mean?" "Well, I don't kiss Artie, Melissa, or my school friends." She made a disapproving face. "Kissing Artie is just yucky, but we met Daddy's friend, and they keep kissing." Jason lifted his gaze from his puzzle. "Angela is kind," he said. "Yes, she is kind. She, she prepared us hot dogs and mac and cheese." Lynn interrupted momentarily before returning to her puzzle, seeming to lose interest in the discussion. "Yeah, and she also mentioned we could have ice cream the next time around." She and her father continue to kiss, similar to how you used to with yours. Does every friend do that? Lynn squinted her eyes shut for a moment before smiling at Beth. Friends may or may not kiss, depending on the situation. However, children usually don't kiss their friends, so there's no need for concern. "Okay," Beth nodded and returned to her coloring. She was drawing a duck that looked more like a stegosaurus. "Time for dinner," Lynn called. "Wash your hands first." Upon returning to the table, she said, "Each of you must eat at least 2 pieces of broccoli. No dessert tonight if you don't." She observed as they poured ketchup on their burgers and began eating. Then she retreated to her bedroom and closed the door. Sitting in the chair by the bed, she put her face in her hands and cried. Thank you for listening until the end. Next story. To our wonderful viewers at Cheating Tales Lab, we're curious. From where in the world do you connect with us? Share it with us now. Moving on, let's delve into today's narrative. First chapter, The Blunder. Jonathan Clayton readjusted his tie as he traversed the polished halls of Clayton Industries, the tech consulting firm he'd meticulously constructed from scratch in the past 15 years. At 38, he had realized all the aspirations he harbored as a kid growing up on the outskirts of Detroit. He had attained success, esteem, and above all, a family he would risk his life for. A message popped up on Jonathan's phone from Christy. "Oh dear, I mistakenly took your briefcase. Emma's lunchbox is in your car. My apologies, sweetheart." Jonathan chuckled, shaking his head. Even after 8 years of marriage, Christy still possessed the disorganized yet charming trait that had initially captivated him. She was nothing like the cold-blooded business associates he dealt with on a regular basis. Instead, she was affectionate, spontaneous, and utterly devoted to their daughter Emma. 15 years post the demise of his first spouse in a car mishap, Jonathan encountered Christy Shelton at a charitable event. Christy, clad in a humble blue gown, was genuinely devoted to the cause instead of networking like others. She proved to be a refreshing change after years of sorrow and solitude. Following half a year of courtship, when she consented to his proposal, Jonathan felt like the most fortunate individual alive. Now, with Emma, aged 10, in good health and spirits, and his business prospering, life seemed ideal. At times, it appeared too idealistic. Jonathan was aware that happiness didn't persist indefinitely, but he chose to disregard such contemplations. This was unique. This was his family. "Mr. Clayton," his assistant rapped on the office door. "Your 11 o'clock is here. Let them enter, Marie." Jonathan extracted Emma's vibrant pink lunchbox from his briefcase. Gazing at the numerous unicorn stickers adorning it, he would deliver it to her school following lunch. Their scheduled discussion revolved around security for Kenneth Lynch's new private practice, but instead of a run-of-the-mill meeting, it was for clients who valued secrecy over everything else. Kenneth, once a renowned trauma surgeon in the city, had to retire early due to a malpractice lawsuit. Now he was venturing into concierge medical services. Entering with his traditional firm handshake, Kenneth at 52 still exuded the air of a man who'd saved countless lives. "Good to see you. The family's doing well. Emma's growing rapidly, and Christy's planning another kitchen redesign." Jonathan pointed towards the lunchbox on his desk. "Incidentally, it seems Christy packed this in my briefcase this morning," he said, referring to Emma's lunchbox. At this mention, Kenneth's expression transformed instantly. draining the color from his face as he fixed his gaze on the lunchbox, his hands quivering slightly. The change was so drastic that Jonathan felt a shiver ripple along his backbone. "Kenneth? What's the matter?" Kenneth moved nearer to the desk, his medical instincts taking over as he scrutinized the lunchbox without actually touching it. "Jonathan, I need you to pay heed to my words very attentively. Keep others from handling this. Don't open it. We must rush Emma to the hospital immediately." "What are you saying? It's merely a lunchbox. I can't disclose all details at present, but your daughter's life might be in peril. The stuff around the zipper, I have seen it before. It isn't food. Believe me, Jonathan, even though I may have lost my license, I haven't lost my knack for identifying poison." The term resonated with a physical impact on Jonathan. "Poison? That's absurd. Christy packed that lunch this morning. She wouldn't harm." "I'm not pointing fingers yet," Kenneth intervened, his voice tense but composed. "But the white crystal-like residue, it could be dangerous. Consistent with arsenic compounds, historically used poison that is tasteless and odorless upon proper preparation. It seems someone has been administering small amounts gradually over time, which could explain Emma's recent tiredness and stomach pains." Jonathan's mind was in turmoil. Emma had been showing signs of fatigue and abdominal discomfort. Despite multiple visits to different doctors who attributed it to growth phase or school-related stress, what if it was something else? "We need to contact the police," Jonathan suggested, about to dial his phone. "Not yet," Kenneth restrained him. "If I'm correct in my suspicions, this has been going on for months, possibly longer. The person behind this is cunning, patient, and has regular access to Emma. We need evidence, and Emma's safety must be our priority first. One misstep, and they might escalate." Jonathan felt his world crumbling. Everything he thought was certain, everything he trusted, suddenly seemed doubtful. But Kenneth was right about one thing. Emma's well-being came before all else. "What should we do?" "We take her to the hospital. I have a friend in toxicology who can help us out." They perform blood tests on Emma and thoroughly examine her lunchbox. Once they have a definite understanding of the situation, they will decide their subsequent action. Jonathan, grasping his keys, finds himself slipping into the strategic mindset that led to his business success. But this time, it's not about profits or market share, it's about Emma's life. As they ride the elevator, a heavy dread weighs on Jonathan, fearing his tranquil life could crumble at any moment. In the recesses of his mind, a dreadful suspicion stirs, one he is yet to confront. Emma Clayton sits on the hospital bed, swinging her legs and talking animatedly about the fascinating equipment in the emergency room. At 10 years old, she mirrors Jonathan's quick intellect and zest for knowledge, but fortunately lacks his chronic anxiety. To her, this is an exciting expedition. "Daddy, why did you pick me up from school?" Mrs. Hyfero Peterson mentioned a family crisis, yet everyone seemed well. Emma glanced alternately at Jonathan and Kenneth as they conversed quietly with Dr. Lynette Levy, the hospital's toxicology head. Jonathan attempted to mask his concern, smoothing Emma's dark hair. "I'm just checking if you're all right, dear. You've been fatigued recently, remember? I tend to fret excessively. That's what Mom always says." Emma chuckled. "She claims you'd encase me in a bubble if possible." This seemingly innocent remark pierced Jonathan deeply. Christy, his caring, attentive spouse who doted on Emma, accompanied her to medical appointments, prepared her meals with meticulous attention. The same Christy whose lunchbox Kenneth suspected contained poison. Dr. Levy advanced, carrying a clipboard and a soft smile. She was a woman in her early 40s with sympathetic eyes and the composure of someone who frequently delivered distressing news. "Emma, I've got a few brief examinations planned. It's similar to when you donate blood during the school drive, but less complicated." Meanwhile, Christy has texted asking about your meeting with Kenneth, suggesting milk purchase and Emma's preferred cereal for tomorrow, all mixed with everyday chat. This message makes Jonathan feel uneasy. His wife seems either blissfully unaware or dangerously capable of contaminating our daughter while discussing breakfast cereals. After his discussion with Dr. Levy, Kenneth emerges looking serious. "In an hour, We'll have preliminary results, and they've agreed to test the lunchbox contents as well. We need a private chat." They moved away from Emma's lively banter into the hallway. Kenneth's medical training was apparent in his communication style: professional, concise, yet empathetic. "Over several months, I've pondered Emma's symptoms, including chronic fatigue, stomach problems, and occasional unexplained nausea that doctors have found puzzling. If someone has surreptitiously provided low doses of arsenic for a prolonged period, it could lead to chronic arsenic poisoning. The early symptoms might seem harmless, often mistaken as common childhood illnesses or stress." Jonathan murmured softly, "But why? Why would anyone harm Emma? She's just a child. We must uncover the motive behind this. However, I have to inquire about some challenging matters," Jonathan continued. "Who frequently interacts with Emma's meals? Who prepares them? While Christy mostly takes care of the cooking, she adores Emma like her own daughter, and they share a close bond." As he spoke, it struck him how innocent his words seemed. He was an expert in analyzing data, discerning patterns overlooked by others, but he had failed to notice potential dangers within his own household. There's another aspect to consider: life insurance. Jonathan felt a chill. If something were to befall him or Emma, Emma would inherit everything: the business, the house, and all possessions. In case of Emma's untimely demise before reaching majority, the estate would be under Christie's guardianship until she turned 18. However, this revelation left Jonathan in a daze as he pondered who would inherit if Emma didn't survive. Christie, it seemed, would be the inheritor. As his wife, she would claim everything if Emma wasn't around to do so. Kenneth confirmed with a somber nod. "Indeed, we're talking about millions, closer to 20 million, including the business valuation and assets." Jonathan felt queasy at this realization, as he shared that Christie was not motivated by greed, having signed a prenuptial agreement that left her with minimal assets if they divorced. Furthermore, she had been an exemplary stepmother to Emma, attending to every scraped knee, school play, and nightmare. The ideal stepmother, Kenneth mused thoughtfully. "In my career as a trauma surgeon, I've discovered that those who seem most compassionate can sometimes pose the greatest danger. They know how to exploit trust, how to evade suspicion." Dr. Levy, holding a tablet and bearing an expression that confirmed Jonathan's darkest apprehensions, said, "I regret to inform you, Mr. Clayton, that we have troubling findings. Emma's blood shows elevated arsenic levels, suggesting chronic exposure. While these levels aren't immediately fatal, they point to regular consumption over several months." The world around Jonathan began to spin. His ideal family, his idyllic life, it appeared to rest upon a foundation of deceit. Somewhere in his household, someone he trusted had been slowly poisoning his daughter. Not only did the contents of Emma's lunchbox test positive for arsenic-laced compounds, but the homemade cookies also contained these harmful substances. Dr. Levy added, "We must report this to the authorities and keep Emma under watch." However, Jonathan protested more forcefully than he intended, simply stating, "No. I understand your worries, but I require some time to manage this situation carefully. The well-being of Emma is paramount. However, reporting the matter immediately to the police without substantial proof could potentially alert the one responsible, causing them to escalate or vanish. It would be strategic to proceed cautiously." Kenneth placed a comforting hand on Jonathan's shoulder. "You're correct, Lynette. If this appears to be a domestic issue, it might provoke the perpetrator, leading them to intensify their actions or go into hiding. We should plan our steps carefully." Dr. Levy appeared uneasy but agreed. "I can keep Emma under observation, feigning an investigation into her persistent fatigue. This gives you approximately 48 hours before I'm compelled by law to report the case to Child Protective Services. These 48 hours provide you with an opportunity to prove that Christie was attempting to harm Emma, which could land her in prison for attempted murder. These 48 hours are essential for safeguarding Emma while we collect evidence." As Jonathan stared out the window at Emma peacefully coloring and humming softly, a cold, determined resolve took hold within him. The kind spouse and parent remained, yet beneath lay the relentless entrepreneur who emerged from poverty. Christy had committed a grave error, she had threatened his daughter, and Jonathan Clayton never lost when something significant was at stake. Jonathan sat in his BMW outside Emma's school, observing other parents collecting their children. Ordinary parents with everyday struggles like homework disagreements, sports practice, dinner preparations. He admired their unaware tranquility. His phone displayed 3 missed calls from Christy and a string of growing anxious messages. "Where are you all? Emma isn't at school. Jonathan, call me back. I'm worried. The school said you took Emma for an emergency. Call me now." As Kenneth had advised, strategy was key. He needed to ascertain the situation before confronting her. If Christy was indeed culpable, she had been clever enough to conceal any traces diligently. He required concrete proof rather than mere conjectures. His phone buzzed. "Kenneth, I'm at my previous hospital carrying out supplementary blood tests," Kenneth stated bluntly. "Jonathan, this is worse than we anticipated. The arsenic levels imply administration for no less than 6 months, potentially longer. This isn't a spontaneous act. This is premeditated, systematic murder. 6 months." Jonathan's fingers tightened around the steering wheel. 6 months ago was when Christy had suggested they augment Emma's life insurance policy. "For added precaution," she'd said, "considering your family's history of heart disease, there seems to be something more. I managed to get a friend in the Me's office to pull some records. Do you recall Christy's first spouse?" Jonathan felt a shiver run down his spine. "She told me he passed away due to a heart attack. At the time we met, she was a widow. Gerald Shelton, aged 34, succumbed to sudden cardiac arrest. However, there's an intriguing detail. Arsenic overdose can lead to cardiac arrest, and its symptoms resemble heart failure. The puzzle was coming together unsettlingly. She's pulled off this trick before. The situation worsens. Gerald possessed a sizable life insurance policy. Christy received $200,000 upon his demise. An autopsy wasn't conducted because he had been under a cardiologist's care for chest pains preceding his death." Jonathan shut his eyes, recalling how Christy had wept over her first spouse's sudden passing, how young and terrified she'd been. He'd comforted her then, swearing she'd never have to face loss on her own again. "How gullible I've been," he muttered. "No, you've been a caring husband and father. She's adept at this, Jonathan. Maybe she's been practicing for years." But she faltered with Emma. Arsenic poisoning manifests differently in children than adults. The symptoms were more challenging to conceal. Christy's call vibrated Jonathan's phone. He chose not to answer, his thoughts swirling with possibilities. "Kenneth, if Christy has been poisoning Emma for half a year, why speed up now? She could be growing restless, anxious about being caught, or perhaps she's setting her sights on you next and wants Emma out of the picture first." This idea chilled Jonathan. How many times had Christy brought him coffee in bed at night? How many meals had he appreciated her cooking? How many times had he thanked fate for bringing such a compassionate woman into his and Emma's lives? "I must return home," Jonathan said, "present as a concerned spouse and parent. But first, I need your assistance with something urgent. Any task will do. I require surveillance equipment, cameras, recording devices. I need to track her actions from now on, and I need it tonight." "Kenneth, that's risky. She won't find the equipment if you hide it well. After knowing how to conceal cameras, what I truly require is insight into her overall scheme." 20 minutes later, Jonathan entered his suburban house, a testament to his labor, filled with elements Christy had demanded, like the hardwood floors, the kitchen where she prepared family meals, and hallway adorned with family photos, all seeming more stage props than real. Yet, Jonathan was relieved when Christy rushed towards him, her face wet with tears. At 32, still possessing the beauty that first captivated him, with golden hair, bright blue eyes, a wholesome charm suggesting reliability, she asked, "Where's Emma? What happened?" "The school kept me in the dark about details. Her act was convincing enough. Had I not witnessed the blood test results myself, I would have thought her distress was genuine." "She's all right," he replied cautiously, examining her expression for any signs of deception. "She'll be staying overnight for observation," they said. "For what exactly?" Christie's eyes grew wide. Jonathan, you're alarming me. Is Emma ill? Is it serious? It seems to potentially be a vitamin deficiency causing her tiredness. Not life-threatening, but they want to conduct a complete panel test. A lie has become easier to use after years of negotiations where disclosing too much resulted in losing advantage. Relief washed over Christie's face, swiftly replaced by what appeared to be genuine maternal worry. A vitamin deficiency, but I've been so careful with her diet. I give her supplements every morning with breakfast. Supplements? Jonathan noted this detail down. Sometimes kids don't absorb vitamins effectively, they said. It's not your fault, dear. Christie embraced him, and Jonathan struggled to suppress the desire to withdraw. Her familiar scent, the softness of her hair against his cheek, everything that once brought comfort now felt like a snare. I was terrified something might have happened to Emma, Christie murmured softly. I can't fathom living without her. She is everything to me. The words, though heartfelt, were now heard by Jonathan not as a testament of love, but as deceitful statements meant to conceal the truth. After Christie had retired early due to a stress headache, Jonathan diligently installed cameras in picture frames, recording devices into air vents, and motion sensors in areas where she prepared food throughout the house. By morning, every room would be under observation. He left Emma's room for last. In the doorway of her empty bedroom, where his daughter should have been safe asleep, Jonathan felt a wrath he had never known before. Christie hadn't merely deceived him, she had jeopardized the one thing in his life that mattered more than living itself. Installing the last camera behind Emma's bookshelf, Jonathan made a silent vow to his daughter. Christie believed she was dealing with a heartbroken widower, seeking comfort and vulnerable. Unbeknownst to her, she had selected someone who had clawed his way out of poverty through sheer resilience and cunning intellect. The act of a loving husband would persist until he amassed sufficient proof to annihilate her entirely. However, beneath this facade, Jonathan Clayton was secretly readying for battle. The following morning found Jonathan seated opposite Christie at their breakfast table, scrutinizing the woman who had shared his bed for 8 years. She performed her morning rituals with practiced grace, brewing coffee, frying eggs, and toasting bread perfectly. A portrait of domestic peace. I thought I'd take Emma some homemade cookies when we visit her today, Christie mentioned, retrieving ingredients from the pantry. Jonathan nearly coughed on his coffee, discovering the cookies she adored had tested positive for arsenic. That's considerate of you, he replied, stricken. However, hospitals have stringent rules about outside food, primarily due to allergies and contamination concerns. Christie's hand momentarily halted on the flour canister, then continued. She should have foreseen that predicament. In an instant, Jonathan proposed an alternative, visiting the gift shop for magazines or stuffed animals. Christie brightened immediately. What a splendid idea. After all, she cherished those whimsical unicorn trinkets. Following breakfast, Jonathan bid farewell to Christie, allowing her to resume her daily activities. Instead of heading to Clayton Industries, he drove to a parking garage 6 blocks away, where Kenneth was already there with a laptop and monitoring equipment. Jonathan took his seat in Kenneth's car as the cameras were activated. We should be able to keep tabs on her activities, said Jonathan, referring to Emma. Kenneth brought up the feed from the cameras on his laptop. Multiple screens displayed various angles of the Clayton residence: kitchen, living room, bedroom, even the garage. It feels wrong, spying on your own wife, commented Jonathan. She's not my wife, he said sternly. She's a predator who's taken up residence in my home, sharing my bed, and gradually harming my daughter. I believed any emotions I felt for the woman were extinguished yesterday. On the screen, they observed Christie moving about the house with calculated precision until she entered Emma's room and sat on her bed, cradling one of Emma's toys. See her face, Kenneth whispered. Christie's face had transformed dramatically. Her usual warm and nurturing smile towards Jonathan and Emma was absent, replaced by an icy, calculating one. She scanned the room with the indifference of someone evaluating property costs. Jesus, murmured Jonathan. She doesn't truly care about Emma. It's all an act. Psychopaths excel at acting this way, stated Kenneth. They meticulously learn normal emotional responses and mimic them flawlessly, especially when they believe no one is watching. Christy rose and headed towards Emma's wardrobe, scrutinizing the garments as if assessing their sizes. She then opened Emma's jewelry box, a miniature wooden carousel that played a tinny rendition of Fur Elise, and inspected its contents with the same calculating gaze. Jonathan recognized she was taking inventory, implying she was planning what to do with Emma's belongings afterwards. His phone rang, cutting off his contemplation. The caller ID displayed Detective Stuart Ray, a contact he had collaborated with on corporate security matters. "You contacted me earlier seeking informal guidance regarding a delicate family issue." "Hi, Stuart. Thanks for getting back to me. I've received your message asking for advice on a sensitive matter concerning my family. Could you provide more details about the kind of help you require?" Jonathan glanced towards Kenneth, who gave an affirming nod. "I'm concerned that someone close to my family might intend to harm my daughter. I need to understand what type of proof would be acceptable in court." A moment of silence passed. "Jonathan, if there are serious threats against a minor, you must report this promptly. I can dispatch a patrol car to your residence within 10 minutes. The situation is more intricate than that. The individual I suspect has been meticulous and cautious. If we act precipitously, we might not amass enough evidence for a conviction. Are we discussing cases such as domestic violence, child abuse, or attempted murder?" Jonathan murmured softly, "I fear it's poisoning." A longer pause followed this time. "Who is the subject of our conversation now?" asked Jesus, to which Jonathan replied, "Your wife." A heavy silence ensued before Stuart spoke again, his tone cautious and professional. "Jonathan, accusations of murdering a spouse are severe, very severe. The evidence must be strong. And if you're mistaken, I'm not. I have blood tests proving arsenic in my daughter's body and food samples testing positive for contamination. What I don't possess is proof of who has been supplying it. We need video evidence, identifiable patterns of behavior, clearly established financial motives, and absolute certainty. Accusations like these, if false, can ruin lives. Is there any surveillance footage? If I could prove her preparing tainted food, legally obtained with a proper chain of custody, that would be crucial. You'd have to find her in the act, with reliable witnesses to corroborate." After hanging up, Jonathan fixed his gaze on the surveillance screen as Christie shifted to the kitchen, making a grocery list. The mundane nature of the scene seemed unrealistic. "We need her to attempt it again," Jonathan declared abruptly. Kenneth appeared concerned at the suggestion of poisoning Emma's food. "Jonathan, that's extremely risky. If something goes awry, we won't have Emma back until we have concrete proof. But Christie doesn't realize this. As far as she knows, Emma will be released either today or tomorrow. She'll continue her plot, and if she refuses the bait," Jonathan's facial expression hardened, "then I'll ensure she takes it. Christie married me for my wealth, Kenneth. She's been patient and meticulous, but she's also greedy. If I can make her believe she needs to expedite her plan, what do you propose? I'm going to inform her that I'm altering my will." Jonathan expressed worry about Emma's health and wished to establish a trust excluding Christie entirely should both of them face misfortune. Kenneth warned him about pushing Christie too hard, suggesting she might act impulsively under pressure. Jonathan, however, showed no concern, saying desperate actions often lead to mistakes, and he was prepared for when Christie would slip up. As the evening progressed, they observed Christie using the computer in the office, indicating possible research. Kenneth speculated about her search topic, while Jonathan suspected it wasn't related to vitamin deficiencies. Find Christie in the kitchen, arranging what seemed to be a banquet lasagna, garlic bread, and chocolate cake, Emma's favorite dishes. "What's this about?" he questioned, placing the flowers on the counter. Christie smiled warmly at him. "I thought we should have Emma's preferred meal prepared when she returns home tomorrow. She must be terrified in that hospital." The empathetic tone in her voice was spot on. If Jonathan hadn't witnessed the security footage showing Christie's calculated actions in Emma's room, he may have been touched by her apparent dedication. "Actually, that's what I wanted to discuss," Jonathan said, returning her cheek kiss. Doctors want to keep Emma for a few extra days due to some inconsistencies in her blood tests. Christie's expression turned troubled. Inconsistencies? What kind of inconsistencies? Jonathan, are you holding back information? It's likely nothing significant, Jonathan responded, deceptively smooth. He pondered their future, considering how best to safeguard Emma. He picked a bottle of her preferred Chardonnay, acting as a considerate spouse. Today, he contacted Gerard Spence. He wanted to revise his will. Christie stiffened. "What changes?" he queried. "Given Emma's health predicament, I wish to ensure there are contingencies if something unfortunate befalls her before she matures." As he opened the wine, he tenderly cleaned Christie's face. "I've been contemplating creating a charitable trust," he said. "If Emma doesn't live to claim it, the funds would go to children's hospitals rather than." He paused, feigning a slip of tongue. "Rather than me," Christie filled in, speaking softly. "Christie, I didn't mean that. I merely wish to ensure Emma's legacy is respected if tragedy strikes." In that instant, her mask slipped briefly, revealing a hint of malice in her gaze. Quickly regaining composure, she assured him, "I understand completely, Jonathan. Emma must always come first." Yet, he perceived the mental calculations behind her calm facade. He had jeopardized 6 months' worth of her plans. If Emma perished then, Christie stood to gain nothing. Her plan required Emma to live until Jonathan's demise, or else she needed to hasten her timetable significantly. "What time are you meeting with Gerard tomorrow?" she inquired nonchalantly as she prepared the lasagna sauce. "The following afternoon," he replied. "I intend to sign the revised will first, and then visit Emma afterwards. Perhaps you could accompany me to see her." She feigned deep emotion. "Oh, how I miss her." Desiring only her safety and well-being, Jonathan lay in bed, listening to Christie's breath, contemplating the number of nights he had shared a bed unknowingly with someone accused of murder. Once he was confident she was asleep, he stealthily departed the bedroom, examining his surveillance equipment. Kenneth had positioned himself in a van nearby, scrutinizing the footage and recording everything. Jonathan sent him a message confirming completion of Phase 1. Christie had been ensnared. Her immediate reply was a warning. "Jonathan, proceed with caution. If she attempts to harm you as well." Jonathan had pondered this scenario. Christie might believe it more expedient to eliminate him before continuing to slowly kill Emma. However, he trusted her meticulous nature. She had spent months perfecting Emma's poisoning. She would likely not risk an alternate approach with him unless in a dire situation. The following morning, Christie showed unusual attentiveness. She prepared his preferred breakfast, double-kissed him goodbye, and mentioned him to convey affection to Emma. The presentation was impeccable, yet Jonathan observed she'd additionally packed an extra lunch, a thermos of soup in case Emma desired a home-cooked meal. "The hospital strictly forbids outside food," Jonathan cautioned her. "I understand, but perhaps the nurses might make an exception. It's simply soup, and she's been eating so poorly lately." Jonathan accepted the thermos without contest, knowing it would be inspected shortly. If Christie had tainted it, he'd possess the proof required. At the hospital, Dr. Levy confirmed Jonathan's suspicions. "The soup contains enough arsenic to inflict significant damage, potentially fatal if ingested completely. She's no longer disguising her intentions. She's escalating because I threatened to alter my will," Jonathan clarified. Kenneth entered the conference room, fatigued from a sleepless night of observation. "We've got it on tape, Jonathan," he said, referring to Emma preparing the soup and adding suspicious powder from a small vial. "It appears to be cold-blooded murder. Is this sufficient for an arrest?" Dr. Levy inquired. "It's enough for charges," Kenneth responded. "However, Jonathan, once we take action, there's no turning back. Are you certain you're prepared?" Looking at Emma, who was peacefully reading in her hospital bed, blissfully unaware of her stepmother's prolonged attempts on her life, Jonathan felt a sense of determination. His daughter looked frail but alive. "I am ready. I've been prepared since I learned of her actions against Emma," he whispered softly. "But I want to ensure she can never harm another child again. We need her to confess, to admit not only what she did to Emma, but also what she did to her first husband." How will you manage this situation? A chilling smile graced Jonathan's face. By offering what she believes she desires, he reached for his phone and dialed home. Christy responded promptly. Jonathan, how is Emma? Did she enjoy the soup? Christy, urgently go to the hospital. There's been an incident. Her voice trembled with fear. What? What's happened? Is Emma all right? Hurry and get here as quickly as possible. Room 314 in the pediatric wing. He ended the call without further words, aware that Christy would understand his terse tone as despair. She would believe Emma had passed away, that her scheme had succeeded. And upon arriving at the hospital, expecting to comfort her grieving spouse, she'd encounter Detective Stuart Ray instead, with handcuffs ready. The trap was prepared. Now all Jonathan needed was to witness Christy entering it. 37 minutes following Jonathan's call, Christy hastily entered the hospital, weeping profusely and showing obvious distress. Her disheveled appearance, mismatched shoes, inside-out sweater was a reflection of a frantic mother rushing towards her child's bedside. Approaching from the hallway's end, accompanied by Detective Ray and Kenneth, Christy delivered an Oscar-worthy performance. Stumbling run, choked sobs, clutching her purse tightly. If not for knowing better, one might have thought she was genuinely worried about Emma's welfare. Upon reaching Jonathan, she threw herself into his arms. What happened? Please tell me Emma's okay. Please tell me she'll be all right, she pleaded. With a subtle nod, Detective Ray signaled to Jonathan that everything was being recorded. Christy, Jonathan said cautiously, we need to discuss some things. I don't wish to talk. I want to see Emma. Where is she? Why aren't you disclosing what transpired? You mentioned she's safe, Jonathan explained as he carefully stepped away from her hold. However, we have concerns regarding her health condition. For the first time, Christy appeared to recognize Detective Ray Stewart's presence. Inquiries? I failed to comprehend. Who are you? Detective Stewart Ray, ma'am. I'd like to discuss Emma Clayton's ailment with you. Christy automatically corrected, then realized how that might sound. I mean, Emma isn't my biological daughter, but I care for her as if she were. I would go to any length for that child. I have no doubt, Detective Ray replied. Mrs. Clayton, are you aware that Emma has been experiencing arsenic poisoning? Christy's face lost all color so abruptly that for a second, Jonathan believed she might pass out. Yet her response was inappropriate. Fear and calculation replaced her eyes instead of shock or bewilderment. Arsenic poisoning, that can't be true. How could? Detective Ray responded, that's the question we're trying to answer. He asked, is there anyone who may have wished to harm Emma? Could someone have access to her meals or drinks? Christy seemed deep in thought. No, of course not. Everyone adores Emma. She's just a young girl. This must be a mistake, she replied. Jonathan then spoke up. Christy, the soup you sent me this morning also tested positive for arsenic levels that could kill an adult, let alone a 10-year-old. The ensuing silence was heavy. Christy's face fluctuated between emotions, shock, puzzlement, pain, betrayal, as if testing which suited her best. That can't be, she murmured finally. I made that soup myself from scratch. There's no way, unless arsenic was added to it after you received it, Detective Ray suggested. Christy's eyes brightened. Yes, that must have happened. The soup must have been tampered with. Kenneth finally spoke up. Who could possibly administer arsenic to Emma over such a prolonged period? He questioned Mrs. Clayton. The levels of arsenic in her blood indicate consistent exposure for months. Could it be anyone who had access to her food during that time frame? It was me. Christy's eyes darted about, as if seeking an exit. I prepare most of Emma's meals, but Jonathan's housekeeper visits twice weekly. There's also the school cafeteria and... Her words were interrupted by Jonathan's stern command. Stop. His tone caused her to halt abruptly. When she met his gaze, the truth in his eyes seemed to penetrate her, causing her to drop the act of a frightened mother. Instead, her demeanor transformed into something cold and calculating. You know, she admitted softly, I've been slowly poisoning your daughter with arsenic for 6 months. I killed my previous husband in the same manner. Christy stiffened her posture, revealing a cold, calculating expression devoid of regret for the first time since Jonathan had known her. "You can't substantiate any of your accusations," she replied coolly. Detective Ray lifted his phone, confirming that it had recorded their entire discussion. "On the contrary, we can. We possess video evidence of you preparing the poisonous soup this morning. We have financial documents detailing your investigation into Jonathan's assets and insurance policies. Additionally, we have statements from medical professionals regarding the suspicious death of your previous husband, Gerald. His demise was labeled as a heart attack. However, there has never been any suspicion of foul play." "There is now," Kenneth asserted. "I had his remains exhumed yesterday. The arsenic levels found in his hair and bone marrow tell an intriguing narrative, Mrs. Clayton. Or perhaps I should address you as Mrs. Shelton. You seem to have never altered your legal name, Christie." This fact, however unexpectedly, stirred a glimmer of authentic fear in your eyes. But you quickly regained your composure, addressing Jonathan with tears that appeared to be genuine. "Jonathan, trust me. I adore Emma, and I cherish you. I would never harm either of you." "You're the one who poisoned our daughter," Jonathan stated calmly. "You gave her cookies laced with arsenic and watched as she grew sicker each day. You held her when she cried due to your inflicted stomach pain. That's not I didn't." The research on arsenic toxicity, the fake name used for the purchase of white arsenic powder, the delivery to a PO box, and the months spent practicing murder and perfecting your technique were all yours. Christie's facade completely crumbled. The tears ceased. Her stance straightened, and when she spoke again, her voice was icy cold. "You believe yourself to be so intelligent, don't you, Jonathan? The genius entrepreneur who constructed an empire from nothing. You think you have me figured out. You were seemingly simple to deceive, so eager for a mother for Emma that you neglected to investigate my background properly." "Actually, I did," Jonathan countered. "After Emma fell ill, an extensive investigation was carried out. Christie Shelton isn't real, is she? Your genuine name is Christina Marlowe, and prior to Gerald, you were married 3 times. 2 of those husbands also met untimely deaths under suspicious circumstances. The shock on Christie's face this time was authentic. That can't be true. I hid my trail. Not effectively enough. Did you seriously believe I would establish a prosperous business carelessly? I'm aware of Robert Martinez in Phoenix, who succumbed to a heart attack at 31. I'm familiar with David Kim in Seattle, who suffered from a fatal allergic reaction to shellfish he'd never previously reacted to. I know about the insurance money you received each time." Detective Ray advanced with handcuffs. "Christina Marlowe, you are being apprehended for attempted murder, conspiring to commit murder, and suspected in the deaths of Gerald Shelton, Robert Martinez, and David Kim." With open contempt, Christie looked at Jonathan. "You have no comprehension of what you've initiated," she growled. "Emma will never be secure. I possess allies, influential contacts. This is far from concluded." Stepping nearer, Jonathan spoke softly but lethally. "Yes, it concludes here. And if anyone who knows you even glances at my daughter inappropriately, I'll annihilate them as I have done to you methodically, entirely, and mercilessly." As Detective Ray guided Christina away, Kenneth placed a firm hand on Jonathan's shoulder. "It ends here, Jonathan. Emma is secure." Jonathan continued watching until the elevator doors shut behind the woman who once shared his bed and life, all while plotting to endanger his child. The woman he believed he loved was merely a figment of his imagination, but this wasn't truly over. 3 days after Christina's apprehension, Jonathan Clayton scrutinized the confidential files Detective Ray clandestinely provided in his home office. The probe into Christina Marlowe uncovered a web of allies, facilitators, and potential future targets that extended further than initially imagined. Emma was back home, her complexion improving as the arsenic dwindled from her body. Remarkably, she inquired little about Christie's sudden vanishing act, accepting Jonathan's tale of her stepmother being ill and needing to depart for treatment. Kids, it seemed, demonstrated an impressive ability to adjust when their surroundings became secure. Kenneth knocked and entered without a prompt. Over the last 7 days, Their work bond morphed into something akin to friendship, born from crisis and mutual admiration. "I have some information," Kenneth stated, taking a seat opposite Jonathan's desk. "Both positive and negative. Let's start with the negative. Christina has been freed on bond, with an unknown entity called M Enterprises posting $2 million as bail. We can't pinpoint the company. It's hidden beneath multiple shell corporations and offshore accounts." Jonathan clenched his jaw. As for the good news, Detective Ray's inquiry has revealed at least 6 other women following Christina's same modus operandi. Fake identities, preying on wealthy widowers with children, slowly poisoning family members to claim inheritance money. It appears to be an orchestrated scheme, Jonathan. Christina didn't act alone. Kenneth then displayed a complicated diagram of connections on his laptop, illustrating the organization's scope. Under scrutiny lies an intricate assassination for hire operation, adept at prolonged penetration and gradual elimination techniques. Their primary focus is on affluent men with offspring, where operatives are insinuated as romantic interests, followed by a series of heir eradications and ultimately the main target. As Jonathan examined the schematic, his commercial acumen instinctively deciphered its design. Truly, it's a masterpiece. Gradual poisoning mimics natural illness. Widowers, overcome with grief, remarry swiftly and seldom delve deeply into their new spouse's past. By the time suspicion of murder arises, the operative has vanished with the insurance payout. Christina was one of their top agents, Kenneth added. She executed 3 successful operations prior to this. Over $6 million amassed from insurance and inheritance funds. The network retains a percentage and offers new identities, documents, and target intelligence. The mastermind behind it all? An individual with substantial resources and influence in law enforcement, medicine, and finance. The individual capable of falsifying documents, altering autopsy findings, and orchestrating disappearances when needed. This was the chilling description that crossed Jonathan's mind as he sat back in his chair, mulling it over. Christina's warning about her connections now appeared disturbingly plausible. Even if she were incarcerated, the network would carry on, and Emma remained a constant target. Could Detective Ray truly apprehend them? Jonathan wondered aloud. Not through conventional means. Too many territories, too many international ties. It would take years to gather evidence, and by then, most of it would likely be erased. However, unofficially, Kenneth offered a grim smile. Ray was displeased. He had joined the police force to safeguard people, and witnessing an operation like this with immunity rankled him. If hypothetically, someone were to disrupt this organization in unconventional ways, Ray might be hesitant to probe further. Jonathan rose from his seat, strolling towards the window overlooking his immaculate garden where Emma frolicked with her neighbor. His child appeared joyful, a stark contrast to what Christina had tried to rob her of. "Kenneth, there's something crucial you need to grasp about me. I didn't construct Clayton Industries by playing honestly or adhering to regulations that didn't benefit me. When someone endangers what belongs to me, I don't summon lawyers or await the court system. I handle the issue directly." "What crosses your mind?" Jonathan turned to address his friend. "I'm contemplating that this network has prospered because it exploits victims who fail to resist. Distraught widowers, ailing children, people who rely on the system for protection. Yet, I am not grieving, and I do not trust the system." He retrieved his phone, navigating through contacts to locate the number he sought. Lucas Driscoll, a former Special Forces member turned private security consultant, had been the military liaison for Clayton Industries during their early defense contracts. If anyone could aid Jonathan in dismantling a murder network, it was Lucas. "Lucas, this is Jonathan Clayton. I require your assistance concerning a delicate matter. A decisive solution is needed." Their conversation was brief, coded, and costly. Upon hanging up, Kenneth was looking at Jonathan with a mix of admiration and worry. "You're not only targeting Christina, are you?" Kenneth inquired. "Christina is now in custody and will likely spend the rest of her life imprisoned for her crimes against my daughter. However, the network that groomed her, funded her, and enabled her to commit murder remains operational. still posing a threat to families, including my own. The action you propose, Jonathan, sounds like vigilantism. It's illegal, risky, and if discovered, could lead to severe consequences. If I'm apprehended, Emma will grow up without a father, yet alive. If I don't act, she'll spend her life looking over her shoulder, unsure of when the next threat will appear. What can you provide me with? Expertise in poison, as that's their preferred method of attack due to its resemblance to natural death. I want to know all aspects, their techniques, their trace evasion, and how we can exploit these methods against them. You're suggesting poisoning them. I'm proposing retaliation using their own tools. That night, following Emma's slumber, Jonathan convened with Lucas Driscoll at a downtown eatery. Lucas embodied his background as a former Green Beret, exchanging his military attire for costly suits while maintaining the strategic acumen that had kept him alive in Afghanistan. How many individuals are we dealing with? Lucas posed without delay. 20 operatives required, including support personnel and leadership. The total count could reach 20 people. Time frame, 6 months. I want every individual identified, found, and removed before Christina's trial concludes. No loose ends, no witnesses, no opportunity for the network to regenerate. Expenses unlimited. My net worth is 23 million, and I am prepared to expend all of it to safeguard Emma. Are you aware that this decision leads irreversibly down a path without legal recourse or retreat, Jonathan? Should law enforcement trace your actions regarding these individuals? Comprehend fully. When can we initiate the operation? Lucas replied with a chilling smile, suggesting the process has already commenced. I've been monitoring Christina's network since Detective Ray disclosed intel yesterday. 3 of their operatives are operational currently, 1 in Dallas, 1 in Phoenix, and 1 in Miami. All 3 are gradually murdering children for inheritance funds. Our priority is to rescue those children first. I wholeheartedly concur. This can serve as a preliminary trial for the larger undertaking. As they clasped hands, Jonathan felt a chill of satisfaction settle within him. The network had made a critical mistake by marking Emma as their target. They'd stirred something deep inside Jonathan that he'd suppressed since his struggles escaping poverty. A part of him willing to go any length, harm anyone, disregard boundaries to safeguard what was most precious. Christina Marlowe and her associates were about to discover that some victims retaliate, and when Jonathan Clayton engaged in combat, he did so to win. 6 weeks after Christina's apprehension, an intriguing trend surfaced across the nation. In Dallas, Patricia Webb unexpectedly passed away due to suspected heart failure while visiting her wealthy boyfriend's son in the hospital. Maria Santos suffered a fatal allergic reaction during a romantic dinner with her new husband in Phoenix. Jennifer Park collapsed at her stepdaughter's school play and was declared dead upon arrival at the emergency room in Miami. To an outside observer, these incidents may seem like unfortunate, ordinary deaths. However, Jonathan Clayton discerned something entirely different from his home office as he reviewed the reports. He perceived justice. Lucas Driscoll had proven to be a worthy investment for every cent Jonathan spent on him. Each mission was carried out with meticulous care, eradicating targets using methods that made their deaths seem natural and thus avoided further inquiry. Crucially, 3 children were spared from prolonged, agonizing deaths at the hands of their supposed guardians. Phase 1 concluded, Lucas reported during their weekly meeting. 3 hostile agents terminated. The minors under their attack are currently receiving medical care, while their families have been secretly informed of the danger. However, the intriguing part lies in the support network. Lucas brought up his tablet, revealing a complex web of relationships that took weeks to untangle. The financial trace led us to the management, a trio orchestrating everything from a Nevada compound. Jonathan examined the profiles Lucas had amassed. The head was a woman named Margaret Sinclair, a former insurance investigator who leveraged her industry expertise to perfect the lethal contract-killing model. Her right-hand men were Brian Schneider, a chemist supplying the toxic substances, and Wallace Beck, a forger creating fake identities. They are cautious. They operate from a remote location with high-tech security, maintain several exit routes. Yet, they possess one vulnerability: Christina was expected to check in periodically. When she went into hiding, they surmised she'd been arrested, but not corrupted. They're plotting to rescue her. Jonathan felt a chill run down his spine as he anticipated tomorrow night's transfer from county lockup to federal holding. An accident has been orchestrated during the transport. This was the moment Jonathan had been eagerly anticipating. Christina, free and unprotected by the legal system, among those who had schooled her in taking lives, his daughters specifically. "I want to be present," Jonathan declared. "Jonathan, that's not the plan. You hired me for the operational aspects while you preserved your alibi. This is personal, Lucas." Christina didn't merely attempt to kill Emma, she transgressed everything I held sacred. Family, trust, love. I crave to confront her as her world implodes. Lucas was silent for a prolonged moment. "If you're present and things go awry, if you're discovered, then I bear the repercussions. You understand?" 40 miles away from the city, on a deserted highway stretch, Jonathan hid behind a concrete barricade the following night. Lucas and his associates were strategically stationed at various points along the road, waiting for an approaching transport that wouldn't arrive. At 9:47 p.m., a prison van emerged, escorted by two other vehicles. Through night vision binoculars, Jonathan observed as the convoy seemed to halt due to a disabled car obstructing the path. In reality, this immobilized vehicle was part of Margaret Sinclair's extraction squad, armed and prepared to rescue their detained operative. They hadn't anticipated Lucas Driscoll's team lying in wait behind them. The ensuing gunfight was swift but fierce. After the smoke lifted, 5 members of the extraction unit lay dead, including Margaret Sinclair herself. Brian Schneider had been captured but injured. Christina exited the prison van in handcuffs, her eyes displaying shock as she assessed the devastation. This wasn't the peaceful extraction she'd been informed about. It was a bloodbath. "Christina," Jonathan emerged from hiding, "you see fear in those eyes for the first time since I've known you." Wallensbeck had taken refuge in the desert and wouldn't survive with Lucas's group pursuing him. "Jonathan, what are you doing here?" she asked. "I warned you that if anyone connected to Emma was in danger, I would annihilate them. Did you think my threat was figurative?" Christina looked frantically at the lifeless bodies of her allies, Lucas's team meticulously erasing traces, the charred remnants of extraction vehicles. "You did this. You killed them all. They perished the moment they chose to prey on innocent families. I merely accelerated their demise. The authorities will eventually pin it on you. You're bound for prison, while Emma will grow up knowing her father is a murderer, a truth he laughs at, devoid of any warmth or amusement. The police will uncover evidence implicating Margaret Sinclair's network in betraying one another. Contract killers are infamous for their paranoia, and it's common for them to eliminate each other over disputes about money or territory. Regarding Emma, she'll grow up understanding that her father shielded her from demons." Christina's calm demeanor shattered entirely. "You self-righteous hypocrite. Do you think yourself superior? You just killed 6 people. I eradicated 6 vermin who earned their living by tearing families apart. There's a distinction." Lucas stepped forward, holding a tiny vial filled with clear liquid. "We found this in Sinclair's vehicle, a medical-grade arsenic compound identical to the one Christina used on Emma, a form of justice." Jonathan accepted the vial, considering its weight. The same poison that came close to claiming his daughter's life, now refined and enhanced by the network responsible for creating Christina. "Negative," he responded after much thought. "It's too hasty, too compassionate. Christina is destined for a 40-year federal imprisonment, haunted by the knowledge that all she held dear are deceased and her part in dismantling the empire is exposed. Death would be an unmerited kindness." He returned the vial to Lucas. "Ensure Detective Ray receives this and all our amassed evidence on the network's activities. Let the families of their victims find solace in closure." As his team completed their cleanup, preparing to vanish into the night, he looked at Christina one last time. Now she was weeping, the truth of her predicament becoming clear. The self-assured, controlling woman who'd once shared his bed and orchestrated his daughter's demise had vanished, replaced by a shattered entity confronting a lifetime of repercussions. "Farewell, Christina," Jonathan murmured softly. He departed without a backward glance, leaving the authorities to discover her restrained beside the road once the prison van's GPS signal guided them to the location. The network was dismantled, Emma was secure, and Jonathan Clayton emerged victorious. 3 months later, in his new Colorado residence, Jonathan stood in the kitchen as Emma chased fireflies in the garden. Though smaller and more humble than their previous dwelling, it felt like a genuine home, a feeling their former showcase never achieved. Emma seamlessly adjusted to their move, surprising Jonathan with her unwavering resilience. When he explained the need for a fresh start in a new location, she had merely inquired about bringing her unicorn collection and whether they'd enjoy a better perspective of the mountains. Nightmares about being ill were swapped for eagerness to learn skiing and forming new friendships at school as Emma recovered. Kenneth, who relocated to Colorado, set up his private practice in Denver, often joining their evening meals. Emma idolized Uncle Kenneth, who shared medical books filled with vibrant illustrations and allowed her to listen to her heartbeat using his stethoscope. "She's fully recovered," Kenneth declared, joining Jonathan at the window with 2 cups of coffee. The test results showed no arsenic traces, liver function normal, energy levels surpassing those of most children her age. "Sometimes I wake up in the night to check on her," Jonathan confessed, "just to ensure she's still breathing and safe." "Such concerns are natural after what you both experienced," Kenneth responded. "However, Emma has grown stronger because of it, in ways she may not yet comprehend." The trial was sensational, lasting 6 weeks and attracting national media attention. After Christina was given a life sentence for numerous attempted murder, conspiracy, and racketeering charges, Margaret Sinclair's network was finally identified posthumously due to evidence supplied by Lucas, offering closure to numerous families whose loved ones died under suspicious circumstances. Detective Ray received a promotion for his work on the case, although he never publicly acknowledged Jonathan's involvement in dismantling the network. Some matters were best kept silent. "Have you heard from Lucas?" Kenneth inquired. "He shifted to other projects, focusing on human trafficking networks in Eastern Europe. It seems there's no dearth of wickedness that requires attention. And are you comfortable with him dealing with it without your presence?" Jonathan pondered the question. For months following Christina's conviction, he had felt restless and unsatisfied. The systematic dismantling of her contacts stirred a new purpose within him, one that surpassed amassing wealth and upholding status. However, witnessing Emma grow stronger and happier daily was subtly returning his focus to its rightful place. "I'm a father first," he declared eventually. "Emma requires stability, familiarity, a presence in her life instead of constantly battling battles. There are others like Lucas who can handle the monsters. My role is to ensure Emma never crosses paths with them initially." His phone vibrated with a message from an unidentified number. For a fleeting moment, his old apprehension flared up. Was it possible they'd missed other network members? Yet, the message was harmless. "Mr. Clayton, this is Detective Maria Santos from Phoenix PD. The woman who attempted to poison my son has perished, and I'm informed that you were instrumental in saving his life. If there's anything you require, no matter how small, consider Arizona as a friend ready to assist." For weeks, messages of gratitude have flooded in from parents, law enforcement officials, and even some of Lucas's acquaintances. News about Jonathan's actions had circulated among certain groups, bestowing upon him a recognition he neither sought nor could entirely disown. "Dad," Emma stepped into the kitchen doorway, sporting grass stains on her jeans and a beaming smile. "Can Kenneth stay for dinner? I want to show him the drawing I made of our old home." "Of course, he can join us." "What kind of artwork is it?" Emma's face clouded with thought. "It's an image of me, you, and Christy standing in front of our house. However, I drew a large red X through Christy because she was harmful and intended to cause us harm." Kenneth and Jonathan shared a silent glance behind Emma's back. Emma pondered when asked if she missed her betrayer, reflecting on the disparity between her perception and reality. I miss the person I believed she was, the one who baked chocolate chip cookies and read bedtime stories, she mused. However, that person wasn't genuine, was she? No, dear, that person was just a pretense. Therefore, I don't truly mourn her. One cannot grieve for someone who never truly existed. These words resonated profoundly with Jonathan, offering a profound realization. For months, he had been mourning the demise of his marriage, the breach of trust, and what he thought was a content family. Yet, Emma's insight proved accurate. The woman he had grieved for was merely an illusion. The loving stepmother, Christina Marlowe, had merely staged her affection to orchestrate a murder plot. What he had lost wasn't affection, it was a deception. The truth and unwavering understanding of his resolve to safeguard his daughter were what he'd acquired. Breaking away from his contemplations, Emma's voice called out to him. "Are you all right?" Jonathan stooped to embrace his daughter, inhaling the aroma of grass and purity symbolizing all that was good in his world. "I'm flawless, Em. We are." On that particular night, following Emma's retirement to bed and Kenneth's departure to Denver, Jonathan spent time on his porch gazing at stars visible here in a manner never experienced in the city. His phone displayed multiple missed calls from journalists persisting in seeking interviews regarding the Black Widow Network case, but he'd ceased answering their calls weeks earlier. The narrative they yearned for wasn't significant. They were captivated by the assassination plans, the intrigue, the grand collapse of a criminal network. Yet, the actual tale was less complicated. A father had defended his child, whatever the consequences. Christina Marlowe was serving time in federal prison. Her connections crumbled, but Emma found safety and flourished. Crucially, Emma thrived, remained healthy, and grew up knowing she was loved without conditions. In the grand scheme of things, this was the only triumph that truly mattered. As Jonathan approached his daughter's room for one final check before sleep, he pondered over the significant transformations since that fateful morning when Kenneth had reacted with shock upon seeing Emma's lunchbox. The gullible entrepreneur who placed blind trust and loved unconditionally was no more. In his place stood a harder, more cautious individual. However, as he watched Emma sleep soundly amidst her cuddly toys and sketches of their new life, Jonathan knew he wouldn't alter a single thing. The cost of shielding his daughter had been heavy: his innocence, trust, perhaps even his soul, but Emma's existence, her future, and her happiness were worth any forfeiture. Monsters vanished, family secure, Jonathan Clayton realized that profound love sometimes necessitates harsh deeds of truth he hoped never to revisit, but would forever bear with him. Should anyone endanger one's kin, no law enforcement is summoned, no patience for justice, and no leniency shown. One merely prevails. Here concludes our narrative. Share your thoughts below. Thanks for your attention. If you appreciate this tale, remember to subscribe to this channel. Click on the video that appears now, and I'll meet you there.